I'm not marrying a woman who will spend the rest of her life counting coins.
Thank you.
For what?
For proving your love had a price.
3 months earlier. Morning sunlight poured into a modest apartment barely big enough for one person. Isabella Hart stood by the tiny kitchen window, stirring coffee in a chipped ceramic mug. The apartment wasn't her real home. The old furniture wasn't hers. Even the second-hand car parked downstairs wasn't hers. Everything about this life had been carefully chosen. Not because she had lost everything, but because she wanted to know whether someone could love her before discovering she had everything. A framed photograph rested on the counter. It showed her standing beside her late father, the founder of Hart Group, one of the country's largest investment companies. His words echoed in her memory. Money attracts many people, Bella, but character keeps the right ones beside you. After his death, Isabella inherited not only his fortune, but also his fears. Every relationship she'd ever had changed the moment people learned her surname. Some became obsessed with expensive gifts. Others began talking about luxury homes, vacations, and business opportunities instead of love. She had promised herself that the next man she trusted would never know who she really was. Not at first. A knock interrupted her thoughts. She opened the door to find Ethan holding 2 paper cups of coffee and a warm smile. I figured your morning needed saving. She laughed softly. It usually does. He handed her a coffee. You've been working too hard. I have bills. We both do. He smiled as if that solved everything. For a while. It did. They spent weekends walking through parks instead of shopping malls. They shared inexpensive dinners, laughed over burnt homemade pasta, and dreamed about opening a little bookstore one day. With Ethan, life felt simple. For the first time in years. Isabella allowed herself to believe her father's fears might have been wrong. One evening, while they watched the sunset from a quiet riverside bench, Ethan slipped his hand into hers. I've never met anyone like you. She smiled. I hope that's a good thing. It is. He reached into his jacket pocket. Inside was a small velvet box. He opened it. A simple silver ring sparkled between them. It isn't expensive, he admitted. But one day I'll buy you a better one. Tears filled Isabella's eyes. I don't need a better one. So, he took a nervous breath. Will you marry me? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked into his eyes, searching for something beyond affection. Something permanent. Something that couldn't be bought. Finally, she whispered, yes. They embraced as the evening sun disappeared behind the city skyline. From a distance, an elegant black sedan sat parked across the street. Inside, Margaret Hart watched quietly. The family chauffeur asked, should we congratulate her, ma'am? Margaret kept her eyes on Ethan. Not yet. What are you waiting for? She answered without hesitation. For him to show us who he really is. 2 weeks later. Everything changed. Isabella told Ethan she had received terrible news. She sat across from him, her eyes lowered. My father's remaining investments collapsed. Ethan leaned forward immediately. Are you okay? She nodded, though her voice cracked. I've lost everything. Without hesitation, he reached across the table and squeezed her hand. We'll figure it out. She looked into his eyes. You mean that? Of course I do. For a brief, beautiful moment. She believed the test was already over. She believed love had won. She couldn't have been more wrong. If you're enjoying this story so far, welcome to Velvet Twist Stories. We'd love to know where you're watching from, so leave your country or city in the comments. And if you enjoy emotional stories filled with love, betrayal, and unforgettable twists, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. Days turned into weeks. At first, nothing seemed different. Ethan still called every morning. He still kissed Isabella goodbye before work. He still promised that everything would be okay. But promises are easy. Pressure reveals what words try to hide. One Friday evening, Isabella arrived at the small cafe where they always met. She smiled when she saw Ethan waiting by the window. "I'm sorry I'm late." "It's okay." He didn't smile back. She noticed the unopened menu lying on the table. "You haven't ordered." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I was waiting for you." The waiter approached. Isabella reached into her purse before freezing. She frowned. I think I left my wallet at home." For a brief second, Ethan's expression hardened. It disappeared almost instantly. "I've got it." He paid without another word. On the walk home, neither of them spoke much. It was the first silence that felt heavy. A few days later, Isabella invited Ethan over for dinner. She had spent hours cooking his favorite pasta. When he arrived, he looked exhausted. "You actually cooked?" She laughed. "I wanted tonight to be special." He forced a smile. Halfway through dinner, his phone buzzed. He picked it up. Another message. Then another. He barely looked at Isabella. Finally he stood. "I have to go." She blinked. "You just got here." "It's work. You said tonight was free." It was until something better came up. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Silence filled the room. He sighed. "I didn't mean it like that." She nodded gently. "It's okay." But after he left, she stared at the untouched candle on the table until its flame burned out. Across town, Margaret Hart watched security footage inside Hart Group's executive office. Beside her stood the company's chief of staff. "He's changing." Margaret folded her arms. "No, he isn't changing. He's becoming comfortable enough to stop pretending." The following weekend, Ethan invited Isabella to a networking event hosted by one of his clients. As they entered the luxurious hotel ballroom, Isabella deliberately wore her simplest navy blue dress. Nothing expensive. Nothing flashy. She noticed several guests glance at her before looking away. One woman whispered loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. "She doesn't exactly fit in here." Ethan heard it. He said nothing. Instead, he quietly stepped a few feet away from Isabella and began talking with a group of investors. She stood alone, watching, waiting, hopping. When he finally returned 20 minutes later, she smiled. "I thought we came together." "We did. So why did you leave me standing alone?" He exhaled impatiently. "I'm trying to build connections." "I understand. I need people to take me seriously." She searched his face. "And standing beside me makes that difficult." He didn't answer. His silence answered for him. That night, Isabella sat alone in her apartment. The engagement ring rested on the table beside her. She picked it up. For the first time since accepting Ethan's proposal. She considered taking it off. A tear rolled down her cheek. "Please prove me wrong," she whispered into the empty room. "I don't want my father to be right." The next morning, Margaret arrived unexpectedly. She placed an elegant black envelope on the kitchen counter. "What is it?" Isabella asked. "An invitation." Isabella opened it. Her eyes widened. Hart Group Annual Charity Gala. "The board wants you to make your first public appearance as the new CEO." "I can't." "You can. My test isn't over." Margaret looked at her niece with quiet compassion. "I think it is." Isabella slowly shook her head. "I need certainty." Margaret sighed. "Then invite him." 2 nights later, Ethan adjusted his tie in the mirror. I still can't believe I got invited. Heart Group only invites the most influential people. He grinned. If I make the right impression tonight, my whole career could change. Isabella smiled faintly. I hope everything you're looking for is there. He kissed her forehead. It will be. He had no idea how true those words were. As their car approached the grand entrance, photographers crowded the red carpet. Luxury cars lined the driveway. Business leaders, celebrities, and politicians stepped through towering glass doors beneath glittering chandeliers. Ethan stared in amazement. This place is incredible. Inside, a massive banner stretched across the ballroom. Welcome to the Heart Group Charity Gala. A voice echoed through the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairwoman will soon introduce Heart Group's new CEO. Guests began turning toward the grand staircase. Ethan straightened his jacket. I've heard she's one of the youngest billionaires in the country. He laughed nervously. Imagine marrying someone like that. Isabella looked at him. Would that make you happy? He didn't hesitate. It would change everything. She lowered her eyes, hiding the pain behind a polite smile. Just then, a member of the event staff approached Isabella. Miss, the chairwoman is waiting for you. Ethan frowned. How do they know you? The staff member smiled politely. They've been expecting her. Isabella looked at Ethan one last time. I won't be long. She walked toward a private hallway. Ethan watched her disappear behind the velvet curtains. His curiosity grew. But he never imagined. The woman he was about to admire from across the ballroom was the same woman he had just let walk away. The ballroom lights dimmed. A spotlight illuminated the grand staircase. Every conversation faded into silence. Margaret Hart stepped onto the stage, her voice calm and commanding. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another Heart Group charity gala. Polite applause echoed through the room. Ethan stood near the front, his eyes fixed on the stage. This year's celebration is especially meaningful, Margaret continued. Tonight, I have the honor of introducing the woman who will lead Heart Group into its next chapter. She paused. Our new Chief Executive Officer. The room fell completely silent. Please welcome Ms. Isabella Hart. The orchestra swelled. A ripple of applause swept through the ballroom as everyone rose to their feet. Ethan smiled politely, until he saw the woman descending the staircase. His smile vanished. His heart stopped. She wore an elegant ivory gown that shimmered beneath the lights. Her hair was neatly styled, her posture calm and confident. She wasn't pretending anymore. She was exactly who she had always been. Isabella, his fiancée. The woman he believed had nothing. She met his eyes for only a second before turning to greet the guests. The applause grew louder. Ethan could barely breathe. No, he whispered. This can't be. After the ceremony, guests surrounded Isabella with congratulations. Board members welcomed her. Business leaders shook her hand. Journalists called her one of the country's youngest billionaires. Ethan pushed through the crowd. Isabella. She turned. Her expression remained calm. We need to talk. Margaret stepped forward. Miss Hart has a full schedule. Please, Ethan said, desperation creeping into his voice. Just 5 minutes. Isabella studied him quietly. Finally, she nodded. 5 minutes. Inside a private conference room overlooking the city skyline, silence settled between them. Ethan stared at her. Why? She folded her hands on the table. Why what? Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to know who loved me before they loved my money. His shoulders slumped. You tested me. I gave you the chance to be yourself. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. She reached into her handbag and gently placed 2 photographs on the table. The first showed her in the tiny apartment, wearing simple clothes, smiling beside Ethan. The second was taken just minutes earlier on the gala stage, standing beneath the Heart Group logo. "The woman in these pictures is the same person," she said softly. "The only thing that changed was what you believed she was worth." Ethan lowered his eyes. "I made a mistake. You made a choice. I still love you." She looked at him for a long moment. "Do you?" He nodded quickly. "Yes." She leaned forward. "Then answer one question." He looked up, hope flickering across his face. "If I had never inherited a single dollar, would you have stayed?" The room fell silent. Ethan searched for the right words. None came. His silence answered for him. A tear escaped Isabella's eye. Not because she was surprised, but because the last piece of hope had finally disappeared. She removed the silver engagement ring from her handbag and placed it gently on the table between them. "You once promised you, buy me a better ring one day." She smiled sadly. "I never wanted a better ring. I only wanted a better reason to wear it." She stood. "I wish you the life you're searching for, Ethan. But it won't be with me." She walked toward the door. He reached for her hand. "Please." She stopped without turning around. "My father used to tell me that money doesn't change people. It reveals them." Then she quietly left the room. The door closed. Ethan remained alone, staring at the ring, realizing he hadn't lost a billionaire. He had lost the one woman who loved him before he proved he deserved it. 6 months later, the Heart Foundation opened its doors to young entrepreneurs who had brilliant ideas but little money. Scholarships, business grants, mentorship. Everything Isabella once wished people had valued more than wealth. During the opening ceremony, a young reporter asked her, "After everything you've been through, do you still believe true love exists?" Isabella smiled warmly. "I do. But love isn't measured by what someone can give you. It's revealed by who they become when life has nothing left to offer." Across town, Ethan watched the interview from the small apartment he had moved into, after losing both his relationship and the promotion he had chased so desperately. He switched off the television. For the first time in his life, silence felt heavier than failure. He finally understood that the greatest fortune he had ever touched wasn't measured in billions. It was measured in trust. And once broken, it could never be bought back. If this story taught you something, thank you for spending these moments with us on Velvet Twist Stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Did Isabella make the right decision, or do you think Ethan deserved a second chance? Let us know in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. If you enjoy heartfelt stories filled with romance, betrayal, redemption, and unforgettable twists, don't forget to subscribe to Velvet Twist Stories. We'll see you in the next story.